Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR Saints, your home for daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Please subscribe, smash the like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And our content this football season is presented by BetUS. Score a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. Enjoy the video. Who dat? All right, Bill, let's start with the Packers. So, man, a lot of people looked at saying sayonara to Aaron Rodgers, and what are you doing giving Jordan Love that contract after basically half a season? And he is kind of awesome. So how awesome is Jordan Love right now?
It's a great question, man. And to start, he's exactly what you hope for in a young guy that's going to take over the program. And it's one of the reasons why I think they were so entrusting in just handing him the program and letting him kind of take it from where it was. He is a confident but quiet and remarkably humble dude. He is extremely confident in his throwing ability. And I think that's where you're seeing a little bit more of the untapped potential really start to show a little bit more of itself. He can sling it and he can make every single one of the throws, but he is still finding his way as a young starter in this league as to what decisions you can make, what decisions you can't, what risks can you take, and which ones are too big of risks with the football, that being the most important thing. He's only made about 30 starts in the NFL. So he's still learning how dangerous I think he can be outside of the pocket. But when they get the run game going and he's able to hit the back of his 5-step drop and a play action fake and let that thing rip, he can make every single throw on the football field. One of the reasons why people felt confident plucking him from the Mountain West and thought that he was going to be able to play with a little bit of development and a little bit of time. And that's a fortunate thing we have here in Green Bay, that you cannot take it lightly. No other organizations really have the sustained, I guess, patience that the Packers have shown for decades upon decades now to allow you to feel confident that 3 years later, you're still going to have a job as a head coach and a GM to let this guy sit, let him mature. And then ultimately now they're being able to see some of the fruits of that.
Yeah, Packers and Steelers are the outliers, no doubt. We'll get right back to the video, but great opportunity to remind you again about our partners this football season at BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. So let's lock in this week's bet for Saints, Packers. Super easy. You go to BetUS on the left side. You'll see the football tab. We're going to hit the drop down right there, and we're going to see NFL lines for Week 16. Here we go. Of course, the Saints and the Packers are on Monday Night Football, so we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and there it is. How about this? A 13.5-point line, and it should be. It's Lambeau Field. It's prime time. The Saints are playing a backup quarterback, and the Packers are playing for a potential 1 seed. Not out of the question. Could you really lay 13.5 with Green Bay? You're darn right we can. We're going to do it. We're going to lay 13.5 with Green Bay. You place your wager right there. It's going to ask me to confirm a couple of taps, and just like that, your bet is locked in. Maybe you're a little more optimistic about the Whodats than me. You could prove it. Go to BetUS, use the promo code YouTube150, where you can get 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. Now, enjoy the rest of the video and who dat. They started 2-2, but have won 8 of 10. How have they done it?
Well, they've done it in a lot of different ways. It's a good question, because there have been games in which they've run the ball 35, 40 times as a team. There's games that they've won now here where I think they ran 43 plays in the Bears game in a total 60-minute game.
Wow.
So they've had to win a game in a variety of fashions. What they've really done, though, is shift the identity of the football team into a power run game behind Josh Jacobs and company. I mean, it's palpable when he starts getting going the sideline picks up, the physicality on both sides of the ball picks up, and they are no longer as much of a finesse squad as they've been for the last 2 decades or so. When you have a passing attack orchestrated by Aaron Rodgers and company, and Brett Favre to an extent, but his final number of years, they were much more built the way they are now. You're going to run a West Coast offense. They wanted to sling it around the yard. They wanted to win one-on-one matchups on the outside. They lost a bunch of big playoff games here in this area doing that. And there's been a fundamental shift. And when Josh Jacobs came into the fold this year, he has quickly taken hold as the true leader and alpha guy, I think, in this offense as a playmaker. And everybody falls in line with him because he gets the whole squad going.
Amen. It's third in the NFL in rushing, and the Raiders were like, we don't need that guy, which is why the Raiders are the Raiders. Awesome. Yeah. Bill Schmid.
Think about it this way, not to interrupt you, but like they take the Raiders, maybe best player in Josh Jacobs. They kind of wanted him back, but Josh Jacobs said, yeah, no thanks. All right, I'm going to actually enjoy playing football again.
Yeah.
And Xavier McKinney, they were college teammates at Alabama. He's in New York. They wanted to keep him, but thought, maybe the price will be a little bit different for a safety. Paid well for Xavier McKinney. There was a time and place, Matt, where Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs were both top 3 or top 5 in odds to win offensive and defensive player of the year, respectively.
Great.
Those guys walked into the building in March, late March, early April. Massive boost to a team that last year was pretty dangerous down the stretch.
Good organizations against bad organizations. The signs are always there. Bill Schmid's with us, 97.3 The Game there in Milwaukee. Also does Packers postgame. If there is a deficiency on the offense, if there is an Achilles heel, what is it?
I think consistent playmaker on the outside, right? Like they got a bunch of dudes that can be factors. But a couple of weeks ago, those in the betting and fantasy football world were quite frustrated with Jaden Reed, who had become a real X factor, Deebo Samuel, light kind of guy, the way the Niners were using him a couple of years ago. And then my man goes without a catch, like one target in the biggest game of the year. However, they scored 31 points. So like they're a very multiple offense, but they don't necessarily have the one person on the outside that is going to get the football in the biggest spot. But Romeo Doubs catches 2 touchdowns. A couple of weeks ago, it was Jaden Reed with 2 touchdowns. They're able to be very matchup specific in how they attack people on offense. So I think that's number one. And maybe the other deficiency, and we'll see how it rears its head. There's a real awesome craze going around up here, Matt, where Jordan Love turns into a superhero during the Toyotathon sales event. And there's a correlation to anytime you see a Toyota advertisement and the Packers are on offense. If you can live bet a touchdown or something, jump in there. This dude is unbelievable through this timeline. However, it ended just before the divisional round of the playoffs last year, taking care of the football and not putting it in harm's way. That's what he's done really, really well over this stretch, especially out of the bye week.
Bill, I'm always in search of an angle. That's as random of an angle as I've ever heard in my life. During a Toyota
it's awesome.
Hey, but here's the problem. Are you talking about national or local ads?
Oh, national, baby. We're trying to get Jan on the radio show.
Okay.
But this is the whole thing. Like, if your listeners look it up online, Packers Twitter is infatuated with this deal. And the numbers back it up. Like, during whatever this little timeline is, and it started about 3 weeks ago, he's like 26 touchdowns to 2 picks in his 2 seasons starting. So it's pretty radical. And then it's like 29 to 25 in the first 10 weeks of a season. But also good teams get better later into the year. And that's what we're more hoping is a sustainable thought as to what happens.
That might be the only reason for Saints fans to watch this game, is to look for the Jan Toyotathon ads and to live bet a Jordan Love touchdown. Hey, a good way to be a really good NFL team is to be top 10 in both scoring offense and scoring defense. That's Green Bay. They're 7th in scoring offense. They're 8th in scoring defense. So what has made this defense so effective?
That's a great question. They took the ball away at an insane rate in the first 8-9 weeks. Those have kind of curtailed a little bit as of late. They're still, I think, top 5 in takeaways and percentage or split right there in turnover ratio around the league. However, over the last number of weeks, they've been able to get after the quarterback a little bit more. Jeff Affley comes in year one. He's the head coach at Boston College, says this NIL deal and working at a middle ACC school, not for me. Going back to the NFL, where he had some roots with the Niners. And he said from day one they were going to be aggressive, they were going to be intense, and they were going to try to get after people and take the ball away. They did it early, didn't get after the passer at all early. Now it's a little bit flipped where, they had 7 sacks last week against, albeit a dinged up Geno Smith late and then Sam Howell for the last quarter and a half. But then they knocked Geno Smith out of the game, and they've had multiple sacks in each of the last 4 weeks. I think that's the biggest trend for why the Packers defense out of the bye week, most importantly, has been able to be as explosive. And they brought in some young guys who were in their program, right? Like, this is my favorite part of it. They trade Preston Smith. I'm on the air saying, what are you trading a veteran for when you're trying to go to the playoffs? They said, we got this Brenton Cox Jr. who was bounced out of 2 SEC schools, undrafted, redshirted for like a year and a half. He's got 3 sacks in the last 6 games. And then Aaron Mosby, who barely made the team out of camp, they bring him in. He's got a couple of sacks over the last 4 or 5 weeks, playing a bunch of good ball. So they've developed some young guys up front who are emerging into their roles. And if that continues to improve, man, the sky's the limit for how much they can get after the passer.
Yeah, Green Bay is it's interesting, Bill, because I think a lot of people who maybe had been more enamored with storylines like Detroit and Kansas City and Buffalo maybe haven't been paying as much attention to Green Bay. Well, Sunday Night Football was a stage where they went and just waxed Seattle at Lumen Field, where it was like, oh crap, are the Packers like really that good? And you look up and you go, okay, well, they're 10-4, 3 to play, and 2 of them are division games. They're 2 games back of Minnesota and Detroit, but they play still Saints, Vikings, Bears. Is division and 1 seed part of the conversation that people are having up there around the Packers?
So that kind of went out the door after the Lions game, where mathematically it'd be really tough for them to have that happen. They need a lot of things to fall their way. However, I think the biggest thing for Packers fans right now is they're excited for the opportunity to go back to Detroit. They're excited to get another crack at the Minnesota Vikings because they're a different football team than when they played them week 4 here at Lambeau Field. But the tough thing about where the Packers are right now, Matt, is they've beaten everybody they're supposed to. They've taken care of games that they're supposed to win. What they haven't been able to do is beat the teams that they're behind, that being the Eagles in week 1, Vikings at Lambeau week 4, Lions twice. So, and the first time they play the Lions, one of the worst games they've played all year. They throw a pick. Jordan throws a pick 6 just before half. At one point, it's 24-3. Wasn't close. They're taking the lead before a very, very questionable offensive pass interference play. And still, you got to be able to play the games. You got to get a stop. They play a 3-point game a couple of weeks ago. That gap is closed. So people are excited, and I think fans and the organization alike are anxious for another opportunity at those guys. But I think most people are anticipating, and LaFleur said it a couple of times, that they're going to have to go on the road in the postseason, and they kind of like it. He's termed them, we're going to have to be road warriors for us to get to where they want to go. They did it a year ago, and they were an eyelash away from upsetting the Niners in the divisional round last year. They're pretty confident wherever they have to go, but it does appear they're going to be away from home come postseason time.
Bill Schmid's with us, 97.3 The Game there in Milwaukee. He's on Twitter at Bill Schmid Radio, SCHMID, at Bill Schmid Radio. One more for you. If the Saints have a blueprint to go to Lambeau Monday Night Football, probably in the snow, and upset the Packers, what do you think has to happen?
Well, it would be, and Darren Rizzi's going to like this, one of the last times the Packers lost in the snow up at Lambeau Field was a divisional round game to the Niners, included a blocked punt for a field goal or a touchdown. I would assume stealing a possession. Now, last year when you guys were up here, it was a Rashid Shaheed 75-yard punt return for a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I think stealing a score is the biggest way to go about it. And hell, as somebody that may have been invested on the Commanders last week, your defense plays really, really hard and plays for a full 60 minutes. Josh Jacobs has put the ball on the turf a couple of different times. during the year and one time on Sunday Night Football. I think that's the biggest recipe for it. And the Packers in their last 4 or 5 games have really rectified their red zone offensive issues. They were among 20 to 25 in football for the first 5 or 6, 7 weeks. And since then have been among the league leaders. So hold them to a couple of field goals in the red zone. The Packers will want to, I think, run the football, try to milk some clock and run this thing down. Steal a possession, this thing could be close late. And, man, the Lambeau mystique in the snow and in the cold is a much different deal than before I was born. One of my first football memories is a really, really sad one when Mike Vick and company came up and beat and just roundhouse
I remember
the Packers in the playoffs in his first playoff start. That was the first time that a team had come into Lambeau and won in the postseason when it was below 32 degrees. Packers are about 500 cents. So it's a much different story. Teams have come up here and won, but it definitely starts by stealing a couple and putting the Packers behind the 8 ball, I would assume.
Probably doesn't include starting a backup rookie quarterback too. But
well, Spencer Rattler might be a little cold, so I don't know if he's going to be doing his midfield issues for this one, but I'm excited to see it.
Bill Schmid, good stuff, man. We always appreciate it. Be well, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.